Hello everyone, it is Friday night and it is Weekender time once more. On this week's show we have a monumental amount of news for Warhammer 40,000 as it enters its 36th year on the planet. Ooh. On top of all the usual indies, Kickstarters that you come to know and love, we are also giving away a massive bundle of Flames of War to one lucky subscriber. If you are interested in getting stuck into the British in the Bulge, we have a starter set, a Flames of War British Bulge book, the unit cards and the command cards, everything you need to start from store.ontabletop.com. To be with a chance to win, you need to pop a comment below, and if you can give us a like and share us around as well, that would be terrific. Otherwise, sit back and relax. We've a lot to get through, and your weekend starts here. Hello everyone and welcome to the show. I'm joined this week by Brother Lloyd.
Hello Papes.
The delightful Benjamino. And the tank god John.
Oh, thank God.
He comes, and where he comes, tanks will soon follow. Or in this case, be available as a massive bundly prize as well.
Yes,
It's clearly the John effect kicking in there. We are going to be kicking things off, as always, with the Indie of the Week. But before we get into that, we have a whole host of Warcrow-like things coming from Corvus Belli next Tuesday.
Yes.
So they will be launching Warcrow, their first exploration into fantasy, with the Warcrow Adventures, which is a dungeon crawler. It's coming to Kickstarter. There are a dose of videos that have been filmed with myself and along with Carlos and Killian. They were also around. So you'll be able to see Let's Plays. There'll be chats about the characters, the world it inhabits, and all other good stuff like that. Also, there was a little sneaky bit of news just sort of tossed in as an aside going, if you're fancy playing the full-on Wargame when it comes down the line next year, then this is a great way to pick up a lot of the character models and some of the monsters for the faction early. Cool. So they just went, as a side, it's also going to be a full war game, not just the dungeon crawler, but this is the sort of the first glimpse. So you can keep an eye out for all of that coming to your television soon.
If you missed it this week as well, by the way, they did another video looking at some of the expansion content coming in. So there's a little tease for that, but obviously we'll have more for you next week.
Oh, yeah. And if you want to make sure that you know when it goes live, you can go over to Kickstarter and click on the little notify me on lunch and be fed all your Warcrow adventure news when that kicks off then. So a lot of fun. They made me narrate things. It's terrible. Like some sort of audible talking book, which is the worst.
So if you like Jerry talking to you and sending you to sleep in the evening, it can happen all week now. So.
That's weird. Do they actually want to sell any copies?
No, I don't. Apparently not. I think it's going to be like the producers. They're looking for some way where they can just sink it, or they just get the money back. But anyway, right. So enough of Warcrow, and we shall move on to the Indie of the Week. And this week, Gringo. So Gringo's 40s is, as you might imagine, a company that does a lot of 40 mil stuff. But annoyingly, I'm not going to look at the 40 mil stuff because I'm argumentative like that. Well, we might look at a few of the 40 mil stuff.
No, ignore it.
I was recently talking to one of our community members, and they were doing a bit of Franco-Prussian War in 28s, and they were talking about sizing for 40 mils and getting some Perry stuff. And that led me to send them off to Gringos anyway. And I'm thinking, while we're here, we've not really talked about what they do. And as you can see down the side, they do quite a bit. So the first massive chunk is all 40 mil, which is obviously big, good for skirmish games, probably unlikely to see many people play it. as far as a large game or large scale skirmish or mass battle game goes. But the 40mm stuff is, really, really nice. And if you're interested in picking up some pieces to paint, it's a good way of doing it. Some of the ranges are bigger than others, but that's the same for the 28mm, which we're going to be focusing on. But definitely, if you've ever felt the urge to paint a larger model, they have a whole host of them. So Mexican infantry, the Alamo, your grenadiers, a lot of these are replicated in 28mm as well. Some Napoleonic stuff, some Franco-Prussian bits and pieces. So there's just lots of interesting bits and pieces that you can sort of dive into and pick up if you just want to have a look at some different figures in a larger scale.
I think their Wild West stuff could be interesting because you don't need a lot of figures on the table if you want to play something just a bit bigger.
Yes. Yeah. It's a good way of doing it if you fancy playing something like Dead Man's Hand or whatever. And it's very good for convention games where it's sometimes difficult for people to see what's going on if you're trying to do it like a little display game.
Yeah, unfortunately, it only looks like they have 4 though.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. The ranges are varying in sizes, but your Wild West can be combined with your Alamo and your Mexican infantry stuff to mix and match it up if you want to go that way. Anyway, enough of the 40s, of which they're named. If I actually scroll down a bit, you can see the big chunky bit of 28mm that runs all the way here, which is in many respects bigger. And I've started picking out some interesting ones. So right off the bat, because we've been looking at a lot of stuff from Mesoamerica recently, and there's a lot of companies sort of looking at conquistadors and that sort of thing, I thought it would be interesting to kick things off with what they have to offer with the Mayans, Aztecs, and your pre-Columbian. So if you're interested in playing something in Middle America and kicking off in that regards, there's a really nice set of metals here that you can add into some of the plastics that we've been seeing from the likes of Wargames Atlantic of late.
Let's just give that a round of applause. Look how big that photo is.
In many respects, I am absolutely gutted, but you can't have everything. Some of the pictures are very, very small in the other ones, so that'll make up for it later on.
Oh, okay.
There's a Atlatl, the spear thrower, when you need to get a bit of an extra range. And they're a really nice set of sculpts that show you everything you need to see.
Everything
comes right at you. Yeah.
Get just in the clippers.
You got clubs, shields, and winkies.
Yep. But we also have things like wounded ones, cool. So you can do dioramas, or if you're playing larger scale games, if you're playing like Fantastic Battles or Conflict at the World's End, there's another good skirmish game that's based on this sort of time period. You can do those. Your mind placed in a mask. Yeah. So while you can have your rank and file in plastic, if you need to get a lot of them onto the tabletop, then you can add some of these metal wounded and character models to start sort of supplementing your.
And it looks like they're all one piece as well, I guess. Yeah,
mostly one piece or shield separate in some cases. Okay. Here we have a Mayan carrying some grain. So if you need your baggage train, if you're playing something like a DBX system where you want baggage, or if you're playing a scenario where you've got get things off a table or objectives to be looted, they've got those as well. Spears by the dozen. It's all good. There's even another, what's his name? The king. Montezuma. There's a Montezuma somewhere as well. You may see him popping up again. I may have already scrolled past, but the Mayan priestess is incredibly feathered. I love that. Yeah. And that, I think, there he is.
There's Montezuma. It's because he's an Aztec, not a Mayan.
Not Mayan, that'd be why. Yeah.
With his big paintbrush, look at him.
I did like the more spectacular headdress on the other Montezuma we've seen previously. But Montezumas are good. Yeah. The armored Aztecs coming forward with their quilted sort of cloth hide. Aztec duck warrior. He's quacking.
Oh my god! Wow.
Thank you. Good night. But yeah, so we could spend ages going through all of these.
Oh, look at the Aztec captain! Quick, look at the captain. He's amazing. That's amazing. That's brilliant.
And Ben spent.
Alrighty, so pre-Columbian Indians as well, so a smaller range, but somebody about to get their head staved in with a massive
Very
war
much
club.
a smaller range. Yeah.
Yeah. But then a chief being carried around on a litter as well. So it's always good as well. I'm all for that. And the Conquistadore to go up against them. This is quite nice because you've got a very small amount of cavalry, but full on quixotic with their armor.
Those are lovely. I like the work on the horses is fantastic in particular. Yeah. Getting the proportions right for those can sometimes be tricky anyway.
Yeah. So, toss away the cast spears, replace them with steel. It makes sense. I'm just saying it makes 100% sense.
Oh, wow. I love those.
So, like I say, right off the bat, Mesoamerica and pre-Columbian, conquistadors, 15th, 16th century, getting in there and being just complete, complete scumbags. Yeah. Well, they were complete scumbags. Look at him. Look at that face.
Look at me. I'm a god. Yeah, sure, buddy. Yeah.
I come. I take your staff. I go home. But it's whenever you start going sort of beyond the familiar, some of the ranges are, like I say, very, very small. Other ones are quite interesting. So this is Maximilian, everybody's favorite Mexican emperor. So I think he was actually Austrian, even though he was emperor of Mexico. But this would be
a Mexican emperor. What the deuce? What?
So
yeah, is this the guy who related to the Alamo?
Yes, this would be the guy where all the Mexicans went, you know what? We don't need Spain to rule over us, and we certainly don't need an Austrian emperor running the place.
Right.
You jog on, son. Okay. And he went, why? Is it because we invaded Texas to try and take it all back, and I did such a piss poor job that you're all dead now? He went, that is exactly why. So you've a range of actual sort of irregular Mexicans. So could be guerrillas, could be just peasant levy, and then you've got sort of more uniformed Mexicans that you would expect to see in that sort of 19th century look.
Yeah, that's it. When they're all lined up.
Yeah. And again, fascinating. I really like the ranges that Gringo do, because there's lots of little wars that are scattered all around the globe between the 19th century and the early 20th century and the interwar period, and Gringo's covers a lot of them. And if people are starting to get into things like Blood and Steel, where it covers a lot of that period and you don't need massive forces, then you can play out these unusual areas, I suppose, more than anything else. Look at that, bare-chested and rolled trousers, barefoot, go team, and a massive tash. And that, I think, is really interesting, because you start to look through them and you're going, oh, well, what was the Rift War? Which is listed later on. I think there's only one model in there, although we will look at him because he's a really nice model. And then you go and Google what Rift War was, and then discover that it was a sort of a engagement between the Spanish and the French in Morocco over whether or not they would get a phone box that could take them through time. But yeah, so the Mexican troops are obviously there. Then you've got the French, the Austrians, the Belgians, the Contra guerrillas, and even some Egyptian palace guard for the Ottomans. Have a look at some Contras. Very good if you're playing Dead Man's Hand or other westerns, because there are Mexican bandits and things like that. So if you,
I love that dude.
Oh, I mean, he's spectacular.
He's got the style.
He's Colonel Dupin. But it's very, they're very similar outfit to Suave as well, from that sort of 1860s period. So, and even a little mule train. Get along, little doggy. Bring my ammo and armaments up the hill, because I've got people to shoot up here.
That's pretty neat stuff.
Yeah. Where should we go from there? Well, we'll stick with the Mexican Revolution, since we're in that neck of the woods, more or less. You've got things like the Federale Police. So this is into your interwar period.
Yeah.
So post World War I, when a lot of nations that had been colonies started breaking free after the.
Hold on a minute.
Yeah.
We want our country back, please.
Yeah, very much so. What's that you say? You've spent 5 to 6 years in a massive bogged down war in Europe and you can't afford to keep your eye on us anymore. Right. In that case, it's time for you to go home. And again, a period that, while I'm sure people in the area geographically will probably know a lot about it, I thought most of it was one and done in the late 19th century. I didn't realize it had pushed on that far into the 20th century. So
wow,
the federales are quite nice. And there's a really nice field gun as well.
Mondragon.
75mm, which obviously is good for First World War as well. And here's Panchovia. Oh no, don't spin. Yay.
Very dashing fellow. Yeah.
Wasn't he though?
Yeah.
And again, really interesting collection of figures that's off the beaten track from what a lot of wargamers will focus on. We get so bogged down in a massive conflict, and this happens all the time, where you think Pershing, a man for whom a vehicle was named, but we think you can't get into a conflict unless it's gone on for years and there's loads of different troops and loads of different nations involved and blah, 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 blah. Whereas the smaller, more focused little conflicts allows you to get a very small collection and play out pretty much the entirety of it. Some of these conflicts only lasted a year or maybe 8 months, opium wars and things like that. And it means you can have a small collection that allows you to play a wide variety of stuff and have it in its entirety without having to bankrupt yourself or fill up a second room.
I was going to say as well, I guess another benefit of that as well is that if you are playing within that particular period and that's the focus of you and your friends' games at the time, even if your eye starts to wander within the range, well, it'll all be useful to what you're playing. So even if you do go and pick up some little bits from another faction within that time period, well, maybe one of your friends is playing with it and you can sort of build things together and all that kind of thing as well. So it's a really nice way of looking at stuff. Yeah, I
really like it, but it's the sort of thing that you end up buying 2 factions to get your mate to play with.
Yeah, please play this with me.
but again, I would say I don't mind that, because if you're playing something like, and I'll default to Blood and Steel because interwar is a period that, and even the sort of the late 19th century, they're not periods I generally play. So Blood and Steel is one of the first rule sets I've got my hands on, but the model count is so small that I could go, well, if we were to play the Mexican Revolution, I wouldn't mind, picking up 50, 60 models aside and bam, you're done, because that still gives you substantial to play Blood and Steel and have different unit compositions and loadouts as well, without, again, having to break the bank. I'd like to point out, pricing wise for these metals, it's very, very good as well.
Well, yeah, for a character figure. Under a tenner.
Is a fiver. Some of the infantry we've been looking at have been like £2, $2.25. It's proper historic pricing, like it used to be in the old days. I feel so nostalgic.
Well, the website is from the old days as well, so
I thought this was quite good.
Well, no, everything is in the right place, and it's really hard to not get lost. It's really hard to not get lost.
I love the fact they've done Napoleon on his imperial throne, doing his best representation of Queen Victoria. We are not amused.
Yeah.
I can see Lloyd's face. But again, even within this, which is obviously a conflict of a period that a lot of people know.
The only reason that portrait exists is because the Time Bandits convinced them to do it.
That is true, yeah. If it hadn't,
history.
If it hadn't been for them, we'd never have seen it. But again, even though this is a relatively small collection of a larger period, it's not massively pushed into, here's like every single bit and bob that you need for the French. There's a lot of them there, but there's some really nice sculpts, and the fact you can pick them up individually means for people playing something like Silver Bayonet, if they're of that ilk, you're not having to buy a pack of 10 or a box of 60 plastics. You can just go, officer, you say, I'll have him. How much is he? 185. Thank you and good night. Infantry, 160, because they're just dungers and nobody cares about them.
Yeah, that's brilliant, actually.
Have we any idea what sort of weight to
Sizing?
these, sort of bulk to these miniatures is?
As far as scaling,
Yes.
are they closer to
I know they're
28 or
28, but are
25?
they like 28 chunky or what?
They're not a million. I mean, they're not the old school 25 mil 28s. They're not really small. They stand relatively consistent with the likes of Warlord and that sort of thing that you find nowadays. They wouldn't probably, I was going to say they wouldn't be as big as the Victrix. Victrix Napoleonics aren't too bad by the horses.
What was that
So
range, John, that you
scale
did the
very
Imperial
well.
Guard army with?
Front rank.
Would they be that sort of scale or smaller than that?
By that neck of the woods.
Yeah, because these have a real sort of warlord vibe about them, like the sculpting style, and that's very similar.
Bam, see, perfect for your jumping into who do you call it? Silver Bayonetti. French Mamluks, awesome. I'm just going to say, absolutely awesome. And the French Napoleon.
In the personalities collection.
Oh, we'll get to the personalities, but Mamluks.
Oh, well, they're lovely. Yes.
When you want to bring some people out of the Near East, just bring up your Mamluks. So they were an elite regiment for Napoleon. They started out as actual proper Mamluk slaves. It's very, very old school, but after a while they started sort of recruiting to replenish the ranks. So, but again, a different unit that you might not ordinarily see, and you certainly won't see in sort of plastics because it's too unique and specific that you're not going to see a company going, well, nobody's going to need 3 or 4 or 5 boxes of Mamluk, so we're just not going to do it. So it's nice to be able to get in there and pick up, one with a blunderbuss.
Yeah, that's
Again,
cool.
imagine that as part of your French silver bayonet force.
I would guess
if you just fancy
Sorry,
the fantasy style. Yeah.
I would guess as well that it would be a nice break for you painting a French force anyway, because you'd be painting all of their standard uniforms, and then you'd be like, right, color.
Oh, all the color. Yeah.
All the color when it comes to these. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really nice.
And like I say, the range is substantial for them.
Oh, yeah.
So you can, if you were putting full regiments together to play out black powder or what have you, then you can certainly go that way. If you just want to pick up a few, you can do that. And then our personalities, so people like Murat, I believe he liked to be called the Custer of Italy. That's not true, but it amuses me.
I like his 5 o'clock shadow. That's nice.
I think those are massive mutton chops.
Oh, yeah.
Going all the way down. But again,
Holding his glove at the ready.
he was so extravagant. I don't know how much of the fact that Custer apparently wanted to model himself on was true, or if that is just
Right.
like nonsense after the fact. But he was so flamboyant, so I really appreciate it. Again,
Oh, he's cool. Love that with the hat up in the air as well.
French officer, go for it. Completely
Claudette.
Ooh. But again,
Silver bayonet. Yeah.
Silver bayonet. Female hussar.
Yeah.
Can't get more fantasy than that. Really nice sculpt as well. General
Grouchy.
who appears to be being played by Kieran Hines in this model. Fantastic actor, can turn his hand to anything, even 28 mil figures. Well done. Thank you. So yeah,
What a lovely selection of miniatures. That's
Napoleonics are utterly stonking. The Comte de la Salle at rest. I mean, just going to chill here against my tree with my teapot.
Is Gringo's 40s all one bloke?
I don't know who does the sculpting.
Miniatures?
I honestly couldn't tell you.
I only ask because anytime I'm at Salute, it's always the same bloke who's on the stand.
Yeah, the company is, but I don't know if he sculpts or if he has multiple sculptors working with him. So it could go either way. There's not much in the way of British, but since we open the French, we'll open the British.
You would suspect there's multiples just based on the sheer amount of stuff we're looking at.
It has been going for a while, but yeah, I would imagine that he has a batch of people painting for him.
Let us know in the comments, peeps, if you know.
Yeah, it saves me looking it up because I'm very lazy at this stage of the game. My age, I can't be, isn't it? So if we scroll a bit further, there's some Russian Napoleonic's not many. But then we had another big truckload of stuff with the likes of Maximilian, the Spanish America stuff, Garibaldi. Now, good old Garibaldi. There's a ton going on with him. Disappointed to see that none of them are based on the head of security of Babylon 5, but kind of everything. So Garibaldi got around a bit, started off in Italy, went to South America, fought all over the place there, Uruguay against Argentina. But this is later on when he returned for the second time back to it, because he went back, started a independence movement, or attempting to consolidate the Italian states, essentially. And then
and all this before he got the job in Babylon 5.
Yep, all of this before B5. Got slapped down in the 40s, went back to South America, and then came back in the 60s, 1860s, and went about setting himself up as dictator and attempting to conquer and consolidate all of Italy and kick out the Pope and kick out the Austrians and kick out the French, who owned the top half of Italy. And then,
not just a biscuit. Jeez.
Then they named a biscuit after him. That's what I was going to say. All that before he became a biscuit, even with tiny currants in it. Yeah. And again, when you start looking at things like that and you're going, there's so much in there in the space of, a couple of years that you could get into and sort of explore that time period. Because when you start seeing,
So did he attack the Vatican City?
He defended it the first time, I want to say, and then the second time round, I don't think he attacked it, but I think he wanted to get rid of the papacy because
that's a shame. Because in my head,
there.
I'm just picturing priests with guns now.
It didn't have to arm the priests, although some of them did, but they had the Swiss Guard there anyway. And I'm not sure who owned it at the time. It may have been under French control, because obviously it's, anyway, yeah. But again,
something more for you to go and research.
More to go and research. And again, another unique little snapshot into a similar time period. All of these sort of cover 50, 60 years from the 1850s to the 1920s or so. But so much to take a look at and to sort of expand on. Still got his beard, missing his poncho. Bit of a shame.
There is really nice detail in the faces for a lot of these miniatures.
Really cool. They're beautiful collections, absolutely stonking collections.
And I think that's kind of important as well. When especially if you're looking to do this as kind of like a very big rank and file style game, having really good detail in the faces so that you can do kind of your basic sort of base colors wash on the outfits, and then just do the extra detail on the faces and make the bases pop as well.
Yeah.
It means that you'll have very nice looking units. And faces and bases, people.
Faces and bases. Yeah. And recently I was looking at the boxers from Wargames Atlantic, and I mentioned in there that they could probably be used for the earlier Opium Wars and for the Taiping Rebellion.
Here's
a rake of them in metal that you could either add in to supplement the plastics to form full units or break things up if there's specific weaponry that you want to use, or for sort of unit leaders. And again, another sort of unexplored or not as prevalent in the sort of chat about wargaming for things like the Taiping Rebellion, the Opium Wars, and just
very eye-opening stuff.
Yeah. There's Chinese Gordon. He did not get that name because he was Chinese. He did kill a lot of them, though.
One of those ironic gangster names.
So. That's the one. And again, British infantrymen, I mean, they have a very similar style to the sort of Afghan British uniforms when they start, rocking the khaki and pith helmets.
And you've got the stash around the helmet as well, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I like that look. Yeah.
They're probably still in Scarlet, actually, now I think about it.
Very nice.
I'm trying to think when the overlap was there.
Well, not nice people, but very nice miniatures, right?
No, very nice miniatures. There's more to look at, because there's things like Tonkin. As you can see here, Tonkin's massive. If anybody wants to know why Vietnam happened, it was because of this. This is the French going into Vietnam with Tonkin and so much there. So you've got the French, the Black Flag, and the Vietnamese army, which, again, so influential for late in the 20th century. I mean, Vietnam is massive, and that whole French Indochina kicked off from here. Then there's also things like the Dahomey. There's not much in there for Dahomey, which is in Africa, but French World War One troops would be good for it. This is part of their exploitation of Africa. So you've got them with some Amazon warriors. We had to
think about that last time we were talking about World War One stuff, and I was just describing how it'd be fun to play as one of the European players, but in a different setting. I think it was because we looked at the ComSpot about it.
Yes,
and it was about the Germans in Africa.
Yeah.
Obviously, this ties in really nicely to all that kind of stuff. So
there's an awful lot of sort of French based stuff, which is quite good. I have to open the ref war because I said I would. But we'll finish off because there are a couple of non-historic bits towards the end, shall we say. There's Robinson Crusoe.
Having a lovely day out.
And it's lovely day out. Yeah. And His Man Friday.
Talking behind him with the musket.
yeah. Probably about to kill that dog. Yeah. There's good eating on one of those. There is The Last of the Barbary Pirates. So Sheriff Ahmed Razuli, who just kidnapped everybody all the time. Right. He was always kidnapping people and holding them to ransom. Apparently he was a really nice guy, as long as he could get money out of whoever he was holding you ransom for. That was all great. If you're his enemy, not particularly nice. Quite fond of unusual ways of torturing his victims. But if you were worth a few quid, a well-read man, delightful dinner conversation, if not hot copper coins pushed into your eyes.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But again, only one in here, but stunning.
What a lovely bloke.
Beautiful sculpt.
Oh, it is lovely,
yeah. So to finish off, there are a couple of science fiction-y type bits.
I do like robots.
You do like robots. There are some robots and then some zombie hunters. And again, they really good for things like
Stargrave.
Yeah, right off the bat. And I like the look of them. It's a bit C-3PO on Tatooine without his body bits on. There's lots of wires and cabling and stuff going on that you can see particularly well on things like the dog, where it's got that rough shape, but they haven't gone out of the way to make it doggy. Everything's sort of bit. The neck will bend, but then all these cables just run underneath. Don't worry about it. Mostly worry about being bitten to death by the thing. And I just really love these. They're a mixture of sort of 1920s Metropolis meets 1970s Star Wars. And I suppose all points in between, bit Buck Rodri and Flash Gordon-y. So things like a robot actually dressed in trousers and things, presumably to hide all his mechanical bits that otherwise would be
I am not a robot.
I think your big metal head says you are, mate.
I can pass a capture test.
Dropship pilot and flak jacket. I mean, absolute corking little sculpts for...
There's 7 TV in abundance here as well. So, yeah.
Recharging your weapon. Hiding behind some sort of thing. In a hoodie, like those kids at the Corn Exchange. So yeah, the robots, lovely little section there.
Brilliant.
And then there's also the zombie hunters and zombies, including people like the zombie hunting clown. I love the fact he's kept his tiny hat on. God bless him.
I love the fact he looks like Mick.
Hi, Mick.
You know who you are.
Can't not see that now.
Nope. Ezekiel with his shotgun. Big Jed, living life. There's
brilliant stuff.
And again, just
Helena, the teenage vampire hunter.
Yep. Very different. Not Buffy, you understand. She's got a different name.
We've got Buffy at home.
Buffy at home. And our zombie hunter with the silenced which is very important because, don't want them coming towards sound and noise. Fortunately, silencers in the movies don't work the same as others. No. And then we have Gabriel, the Komodo Dragon Master.
Oh, that's amazing.
With his Komodo dragons.
Yay! That feels like the sculptor of that miniature was like, do you know what? I don't care.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Because when you're in the zombie apocalypse and you've got yourself some sort of glaive in one hand and then a scoped black powder blunderbuss musket thing.
Yeah,
I have no idea. I mean, just go nuts, mate. Wear your huzzah police and all the rest. Just you do you. And then also, if you want to pick up the Komodo dragons, by Grabthar's hammer, £2 each. Yay!
It's like Lord Flashheart in a post-apocalyptic setting.
Woof! There's another zombie hunter retrieving her bolt from the head of a Wombi.
I love that.
Yeah. So
Wicked.
that's what I have for you today. If you fancy exploring a whole Galvey bucket load of periods that you may not have heard of before, it's a great place to start and just start researching. Go, you know what? I could really do something here. And if you don't, and you just fancy picking up some stuff for fantasy games like Silver Bayonet or Star Saga or whatever it happens to be, then you can do that also through the medium of Gringo.
That's getting broads tonight because we only scratched the surface there.
Oh, we could literally spend the whole show there. I had to be very, very good, and even then, I'm looking at the clock, and I wasn't that good, was I?
And Lloyd comes back next week, and he's bought the entire catalog.
Right. We're going to take a quick swish, and we'll be right back with the news.
Coming to you from the center of Northwestern Europe. Covering board games, war games, card games, and all that you love. It's the news.
All right, we are back with the news. And last week, there was a big Galvey bucket of news came out of Games Workshop because of an anniversary.
Yeah. Just as I predicted, all of that lovely news after we filmed the show. There we go.
It's like they did it deliberately.
It's like they do it deliberately, yes.
Snuck in behind us. But that's all right, because we're here to bring you up to speed with anything that you missed with shiny pictures.
Yeah, so the big news from Games Workshop was mainly focused around the sort of update for the Astra Militarum, previously known as the Imperial Guard back in the day, for Warhammer 40,000. And
John's happy dance, that's delightful.
That is the happy dance of John. Don't worry, John, I'm going to be asking your opinions in a second. So we got to look at the new army set and a whole bunch of the additional stuff that's going to be coming out. So the army set itself will be a little bit like the box sets that we've seen for the Leagues of Votan and Black Templars and stuff in the past. You're going to get your hands on a command squad, your shock troops, your field ordnance battery you see at the back there, and also a sentinel. And there's also a codex in there as well, but we'll get to that in a second. But it's a pretty nice looking set of miniatures. And I got to say, I think of pretty much all of the factions in Warhammer 40,000. I think the Imperial Guard have got a serious glow up when it comes to their miniatures range. I don't know about you, Don, but I looked at these and I was like, well, those aren't half good, are they?
What have they changed then? Because they look taller. Did they get taller or did they just change the proportions?
They've changed everything.
They are better proportioned. They have more movement. They have a different range of weapons. There are male and female troopers in the box. They come with different head options, weapons, all sorts of different things. It's a very, very nice little set of troops. So,
because we were talking about this, and it looks like they're 32mm bases rather than the old 25. So they've got taller. And because they're taller, they no longer have hands the size of hams and heads like pumpkins. So proportionality has helped as well with going up a scale.
They've had the Primaris treatment then.
Yeah, they've all been Primarisized.
Full of some serum or something. Yeah, but I genuinely think that the collection is possibly one of the best little updates we've seen for a faction in a very long time. Obviously, it was really nice as someone who collects Eldar to see them update the Guardians and things, but that Cadian kit had been, the staple of the Astra Militarum for a very, very long time. In general, the Imperial Guard as a whole, really. So it's really nice to see pretty much everything being upgraded, I think, for the Imperial Guard. I think already, John, you've decided you're probably going to buy into this, I imagine. So
yeah, I am. And depending on price, I may actually go in for 2 of those boxes just to get, because it's going to give you enough of your staple. It's going to give you enough of your basic infantry plus a couple of commands and a couple of the weapon themes.
Yeah.
These new heavy weapons as well
They're great. Yeah.
They've not changed much, but they've changed them enough. I like the fact that the heavy bolter, for example, has that ammunition box tray on the side of it now instead of just a belt feed up into it. I like the use of essentially German field caps on some of the characters as well.
They had those years ago on the Rattling Snipers, and then only on the Rattling Snipers. And it was like, why are we not seeing more self covers?
Yeah.
But I mean, they've just changed enough with all the proportions. The slightly different. I like that they've went and taken a hint from like the modern military stuff, where they've now got knee pads on the trousers and stuff like that. The armor feels a bit slimmer and a bit better produced. You know, it feels like it would be a bit more comfortable to wear. I've built an Imperial Guard costume based on the old models, and I can tell you for a fact that flak armor is rubbish. It is not comfortable. But that stuff just looks a bit nicer, and they have backpacks and stuff now too. Plus, these to me,
the field ordnance batteries are amazing.
They feel reminiscent of the old heavy weapon teams, where everything had a blast shield on it, and that just looks great.
I don't know what to think, because I'm like looking at it, going, it feels like Games Workshop isn't quite Games Workshop anymore. Now that these guys have also changed. I just have that. Oh,
is this like the whole Ship of Theseus thing? If you change everything at some point, it's no longer the ship.
could be. Yeah. Could be Trigger's brush.
Have they said anything about what this is, the field ordnance battery? Because I was looking at it, and I'd always looked at these and going, well, that's kind of thud gunny type thing, and this looks like a basilisk, so like a non-rifled bombard type gun, because it's got the gas release at the back, blah blah blah. But they're
like a sawn-off basilisk.
Yeah, but obviously they're kind of, we kind of know what they might be. You know, rocket. But well, that's a neb anyway
of weapons, because I think they said that the one at the bottom is like a souped-up las cannon.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, because it's clearly a las cannon setup, but we have the las cannon in there.
In the heavy weapon team.
Yeah. So having a second bigger one.
So it might be stuff that they've torn off. Well, it might be like their equivalent of taking like tank-based weapons and then building them onto like ordnance effectively. But I think that I love that they've really kept with the theme of doing them as little tiny diorama-style bases with all of the extra bits.
Yeah,
like the boxes of ammo and the crews all like covering their ears and deciding when they need to shoot and all that kind of stuff.
What worries me is that in two of those pictures, the soft cap guy that's pointing is stood on a box, and I'm concerned that that's all he is. A dude stood on a box.
Oh yeah.
Well, I'm sure we could make him into a dude that stands on a rock. That'd be easy.
There's enough of that already, though.
Find yourself an empty helmet. Because he's wearing self-coat, and put a helmet on it, or just have him stick a bit on the back leg of the other carriage itself.
True. The other thing that I really liked about these kits as well is that obviously they're designed for you to use them for the ordnance batteries and things. But imagine if those were built, you could just use them as tank crewmen or either like tank commanders. The guy with the finger pointing, he could be on top of the tank. Have the guy who's covering his ears, maybe someone who's just shouted out an order and then gone, or something as well. I think they'd be great as like tank riders and tank commanders. They'd be really cool. So,
got a pair of bins around his neck.
I like the minis. Don't get me wrong. I do like the minis. I'm just at that point where it's the same thing as when the Primaris come out. You're just about, I'm a bit phased out of phase here.
It's
obviously
just in big look. Him with his helmet cover.
I mean, they definitely look like modern miniatures now.
Yeah.
But have they lost their Games Workshop look while they've gone to that?
But what's the Games Workshop look?
To be fair,
the Primaris.
It's pretty much that for the Cadians anyway. They've just embigulated them and added like another layer of armor under. Their silhouette is still pretty much the same.
They've refined the shapes a little bit. They haven't made them as chunky as before, because I think the old Cadians were probably still a hand sculpt. So they would have been at least 20 years old. Yeah.
Certainly one of the things this helps them with, if you scroll up a little bit, is when it comes to animations and possibly even live action way down in the future, when you're getting your stuff to look more in proportion, that's going to animate more naturally than these big chunky things. And the Primaris Marines should animate more naturally than the original Marines. Certainly if they're looking at it from the perspective of Warhammer Plus and series and animations and possibly live action in the future, this helps move towards that for sure.
Yeah, because for example,
like you mentioned cosplay there, John. Your cosplay, if you're doing that again, would be far more natural.
It would, yeah, and it would fit far better. But like, I think you've nailed it actually, because the motion of a Primaris Marine, like he actually has hips now. Like the old Firstborn Marines there was nothing there that suggested that the figure inside had a hip. It was just straight from body to legs, and the legs were like splat all over the place.
We'll get to that boarding action stuff in a second. So in addition, we also got a couple of new character miniatures. Now this is the miniature that I'm not massively fond of. I know Shay quite likes this miniature, but that's because he's like Soviet obsessed and stuff.
Very young.
But this is the Commissar. I wish he was shouting more. I want to shout.
Not shouting at all.
Well, yes, yeah.
I wish he was doing anything at all. It's entirely possible the Commissar has fled, but so people don't realize he's fled. He's got a shop mannequin and just put his hat, coat, and gun on it.
Do you know what that's like?
You know when they're sculpting in 3D, when they're CAD sculpting, the first thing they do is a T-pose, it's called.
Yeah.
It's straight with the arms out from the body. Doesn't have to be all the way out as a full T, but sometimes they're just down. It looks like it's still in that T-pose. They haven't actually done anything.
It's like a Chinese policeman. Because in China, they actually use like mannequin policemen.
Right. Oh, just keeping people on their toes.
And cardboard cutouts and things sitting around the country to pretend they're policemen, but they're not actually policemen.
So you never know.
So he's a bit,
there we go.
He's a bit like that. He also looks very surprised.
What I find lacking in the Commissar is he's not as flamboyant as we've known Commissars to be.
Yes.
This is probably playing into what Lloyd's saying about it doesn't feel Warhammer-y anymore. I think the Commissar kind of personifies that, because usually the cap is a lot taller, and there's a lot more like ornamentation and stuff on the hat and the uniforms. So.
I don't necessarily dislike it. It's just going to take a little bit of time to warm up to it.
Oh no, you'll never warm up to that. It's terrible.
I want to see what the other options are on that plastic kit, because all of their character kits come with additional things nowadays. So I want to see what else they throw.
There'll be some options where the arms bend. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Is my death core in the bin then?
No. Well, I'll talk about this in a second, actually. So we also got to look at the new Sentinels and stuff as well. So we got to look at those, which is quite nice. We've seen previews of these before, where they've now got the full armored versions, and then they've also got the slightly more scout-based Sentinels with the chainsword arms and all that kind of thing. So you've got
rounded them off.
You rounded them off a little bit, but then you've still got that slightly more geometric look to the scout ones as well, which is quite nice.
Should they be rounding them off if they're trying to have Horus Heresy and 40k feel different in flavor?
That's true. Yeah.
Well, considering the original Sentinel looked like an egg on legs, yes.
There's that.
Do you not like these then, John, by the way?
I don't know why they put mud guards over the hip joint.
Stop mud getting on the hip.
From where?
From the ground.
A lot of mud.
From the
maybe because we haven't seen the Codex yet, right?
Right.
But maybe you could have tank riders on it. Don't think of them as hip guards, but they're additional places for people to hang off when they're being transported from one to the other.
I hadn't seen the scout version of it. I prefer the scout version to the armored one. Because
then the mud guard makes sense, because like if you're in an open top, you don't want a load of mud landing on you constantly.
Yeah, fair enough. But
there's legs going.
I prefer the look of the less armored side of it. I don't like all the armor on the legs, the knees, and the shins. The scout one looks better, but it's more because I grew up with the last version of the Sentinel.
So that's one that you kind of remember, yeah.
It's the more angular sort of ATST kind of I preferred that more blocky, squared off kind of shape.
Overall, I like this. I like these a lot, but I'm just wondering if they're gonna are they going to water down the difference in the Horus Heresy compared to 40k by going down this route? If they keep going down this route with the Marines, and
things might be changing a lot in 40k. So, but, if you just click on the next tab, Jerry, just bring up the Castellans.
Bring up the Castellan.
Then I'll go back to my thoughts on the Imperial Guard. So this is the new Castellan model that's been released as well. So
most of the time, his arms not against his body, like a mannequin.
Most of the time with the commanders in the Imperial Guard, you often have them in command squads. mostly, but then obviously you have the occasional individuals. These are the kind of those individuals that will float between your different regiments and things, and they are very good at giving orders and inspiring the troops and all that kind of thing. And there's basically just a couple of different options that were shown off for your Castellans, taking to the tabletop and kicking ass, taking names. You got bolt guns, chainswords, plasma pistols, all sorts of different things for them to have fun with. And yes, as Jerry pointed out, that is Nork Dead Dog in the background there. So yeah, very cool.
This guy feels more like he should be wearing that commissar hat.
Yes.
In fact, a head swap would immediately make the commissar more commissar.
Yeah. Now, this brings me to talking about the Imperial Guard as a whole. So we didn't actually see the cover for the Codex, and during the live stream they said there's a specific reason why they didn't show it. Now that could be that they were basically keeping a particular character secret, for example, like I know a lot of people would love to see, I've forgotten his name now.
Yarrick.
No, not Yarrick. Creed, yes.
Creed,
a lot of people were like
dead.
Well, Creed is in a museum in the Necron Labyrinth, isn't he? And his daughter has taken over, so maybe he's coming back. But I think the big reason they didn't show the Codex cover is because they're going to go back to making Regiment box sets for different versions of the Imperial Guard.
Right. That's quite a reach, Ben.
Because in some of the special rules that they've previewed, they mention things like the Mordian Ironguard and the Death Corps of Krieg and all these different factions, sub-factions within the Imperial Guard. I think we're going to see that core kit for the Cadians being the way for them to build additional versions of the regiments for you to make various forms of Imperial regiments in the Astra Militarum. And I reckon that on the front cover there'll be a couple of different versions of the different regiments on there. You see, so,
it's too reachy, Ben.
God damn it!
It's too reachy because
is it too much of a hot take?
Every Codex has had Mordian Ironguard in it or Death Corps of Krieg because they were all used as stratagems or special rules or regimental choices.
Yeah.
You could be right though, and it's something people have been crying about for a long time. That's why the Death Corps are plastic now. So
I mean, there's a lot of people out there that make alternative versions of those models, and Games Workshop want to try and corner the market, and they do have a very, very old set of Catachans that are going to look very small compared to these new Cadians.
I was just looking at it from this point of view. They've essentially wiped out the third-party market for Astra Militarum, the regular army, anyway. Well, they're not. The heads and stuff aren't going to suit these new things, and your bodies and things.
Oh well, yeah, you mean the resin stuff? See, I immediately defaulted in my head to like plastics, like the Reptilian Overlords, NAM fighters, which I still think look better. And certainly is Catachans.
I know I'm talking about head swaps, and I'm talking about buying other miniatures to mix in with your Imperial Guard or your Astra Militarum. They've essentially wiped out that market. The market hasn't gone anywhere. People obviously still buying it to build in with their existing armies. But if you go down the route of going, I'm going to buy into the new look Astra Militarum, has essentially wiped that out. Those companies will have to start again. And then maybe who knows? Maybe they will look at the other army types again and say, do you know what? We're leaving money on the table by having nothing there.
Especially Mordian Ironguard.
Well, exactly.
If you want to do space RUC, where else are you going to do them?
So, but has it screwed my Death Corps? Or my Death Corps now just going to look tiny compared to these guys?
I think they were sculpted with the new proportions in mind, I would think.
I'd say so.
So, yeah.
Because you've also had mil bases, Lloyd.
Oh, that's true.
What?
Yeah. Are they on larger bases? Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I never stuck them on their bases.
I would check that. If you find they've come with a box full of 25 mil rounds, then you might find you've got a little Stampy Death Corps, little tiny, malnourished, undergrown.
I'm sure they're all VAT-born anyway. So
yeah. Moving on from the Imperial Guard, which is a pretty awesome selection of things, and it'll be very fun to see what John makes of those when that army comes together, obviously. We also got a new mode of playing Warhammer 40,000. So this is going to be included in the new supplement, which we'll talk about in a second, but this is called Boarding Actions. And Boarding Actions is designed to be 500-point sort of intense close combat fighting. You can't take vehicles and you can't take monsters, obviously.
Right.
And you instead are fighting inside the likes of Space Hulks, Imperial facilities, and all sorts of different things like that. And the idea is that you will be focusing in on building a core set of troops and then your elites and all that kind of things, and fighting out very intense close combat battles. Sounds pretty cool to me. The idea is that you use a lot of the kill team train that's come out as part of the last box, which was Into the Dark, and also the new one that's coming up, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. And you sort of mash them together with some of the boards, and you play small games of Warhammer 40,000. There's no word on how much some of the more intricate the rules might be. I would assume it's just basically the normal 40k rules, but you play on these certain smaller boards and tinker around with scenarios and objectives.
Sort of a halfway house between Kill Team and
pretty much
40k.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
But I like the sound of it. I think it will get a lot of people buying small elite armies to play boarding actions that are maybe different from their sort of core faction, for example. Obviously need the terrain, but that's the.
To me, it sounds like a sort of 40k in 40 minutes. You remember the old
sort of like combat patrol-y type thing from back in the day, kind of thing. Yeah.
It feels like that, and it also. I'm going to sound no, screw it. I am going to sound negative. It just sounds like they're saying, what about all those things we had nostalgia for? Let's give them some more nostalgia. Let's give them a different way to play, so they have to buy more stuff. Yeah. And yes, we know it's all about us buying more stuff, but at the same time, can you not make an original idea once? Yeah. Because you haven't in 15 years. You haven't since Apocalypse, and that didn't go well.
That's true.
Well, I wouldn't say that. Warhammer Plus was the original idea.
Oh yeah.
Hey, it's still going, right?
oh no, wait. Was that copied?
Well, it's still taking my money. If it's still going, it's definitely taking my money though.
So the rules for boarding action are going to be included in what are called the new Arcs of Omen supplements. So the first one's going to be coming out fairly soon, and this is kind of like the next big story, the next big narrative, the next big campaign for Warhammer 40,000. Some people have hinted maybe this is going to be the kind of like the 40k end times. I don't know. I'm not going to go that far yet. But 10th edition is probably coming next year, so make of it what you will. But this is going to follow Abaddon and another one of his definitely going to work Black Crusade style things.
This time, I promise.
This time, yes. So what he's done is that he has taken a bunch of Space Hulks and other other spaceships and space stations, and alongside a deadly ally, which we'll see some teasers for in a second, they have tried to kind of build weapons and all sorts of different things onto these facilities, and they are sending them deep into the heart of the Imperium to cause as much chaos, as possible, with all of those weapons and warbands and all that kind of thing. So it'll be very interesting to see how this all plays out. Abaddon's ideas never really work, so let's see if this one is going to come true. Talking of the sort of Arcs of Omen and this sort of strange ally, another teaser trailer came out, which you can see there at the bottom of the screen. So the idea was Demon X Machina and all this kind of weird, quirky stuff. The thought is, from what we've seen here and some of the teaser images, is that we might be getting Dark Mechanicum in Warhammer 40,000. Now, we've not really seen them done before. Kind of hinted at. Obviously, they were a much more of a big thing in sort of the Horus Heresy. A lot of people talk about them there, but maybe the Dark Mechanicum are going to be coming back with some kind of demonic new overlord leading some of the forces that they've dragged away from Belisarius' call and that kind of thing. And we'll see them allying up with Abaddon, who is looking very chunky there. He's had a lot of biscuits. So, yeah. But that's the new sort of teased model that they showed. Maybe it's something Dark Mechanicum. Maybe it's something Necron tier, perhaps, with the Void Dragon being underneath the surface of Mars and all that kind of thing. Blah, 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 blah. It'd be really cool. But, yeah. And, we also got a cool picture of a new Khorne guy because, there we go.
It's been a while since they've done anything. They haven't changed the Juggernaut. That's good. Yeah. Although he does have
he now has a saw horn.
I was going to say, it's not a chainsaw blade for a head, but, fair play.
Never good having a saw horn, but he looks rather cool. And it's nice to see the World Eaters getting more fancy stuff for their Cornate Masters. Very nice. So yeah, that's the big stuff that came out for Warhammer 40,000 at the moment. But we have more, because of course we have more. And this also ties into the pre-orders from this week as well. So in addition,
buy merch.
Yes, go and buy these from our store. So yes, following on from the announcement of the Imperial Guard getting that new army set, we also got the news of a new Kill Team set. Yes, it's that time already, folks. So this is 40,000 Kill Team Shadowvaults, and this sees the Catachans, yeah boy, going up against the Necrons.
Don't care about anything else. Let's just talk about the Catachans.
Yes. So the Catachans are the new models, and they're like amazing. They are, as what was it you said, John, about the Tempestus Scions?
They're what the Tempestus Scions think they are.
Exactly. Yes. And so yes, we got to look at a whole new squad of Catachans. There's going to be 10 models in the set for you to choose from. In the standard way that they've been building up a lot of these Kill Team sets, this is the full-on new plastic kit for you to use alongside the Necrons, which get sort of like a few existing stuff that's sort of been bodged together. But yeah, elite core badass troops for the Astra Militarum, armed with loads of special weapons, getting their hotshot lasguns, looking amazing, looking grizzled. Oh, what a lovely
looking
set.
Like they don't cost 100 to 120 pounds on eBay.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
If you wanted if you wanted Inquisitorial Stormtroopers, you've got your ideas now. Boom, looking fantastic. I really like this kit. I think there's loads of character built into it. The Catachans, as you say, are probably one of the most well-loved elements of the Astra Militarum, I think. And so it's nice to see them back in a new fashion for use in Kill Team. But yeah.
I like the Hurt Locker looking fellow with his demo charge.
Yeah. Looking very cool.
It's sweet. I like them. I like them a lot. I like them. The longer I look at them, the more I get used to the whole new look anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's enough there from the old aesthetic that carries over.
Yes. I think we
don't care about the Necrons.
Hey, you might not care about it, but you're going to get to see them.
It's no real skin off my nose because I don't have an Astra Militarum army anyway. So
yeah. But yes, so this is the Hierotech Circle. So this is the sort of Necron side of things. You get your sort of Cryptech leading things in battle alongside a bunch of their little minions. As I say, it's a little bit more of a sort of force built out of stuff that already exists for the Necrons with a few little tweaks here and there. An additional miniature or two.
Death Marks and Immortal.
Death Marks and Immortals. Although that's like a new, like named immortal type character, apparently, which is like higher up immortal. How can you be more immortal than immortal? But there we go.
I should call him Teddy Westside.
Teddy Westside and his Death Marks. So yeah, that's the new Shadowvault set that I believe is up for, I think it is actually up for pre-order this weekend. So if you're interested in picking that up, make sure to head on over to store.ontabletop.com. Pow.
Cool on the gang. So leaving all this grim dark sci-fi behind and taking a step into the wonderful world of
regular old sci-fi. Well, technically, this is sci-fi that you could make however you like. So this was a new game that I spied that popped up in our community this week. So this is from the creators Jason and Amy. They have partners who have worked on this game together over the last couple of years, and this is called Enderain. And the idea of this is that it's their approach at making a sci-fi miniatures game. They'd looked at stuff like Stargrave, and other games out there like Kill Team and the like, and they wanted to try and make a nice halfway house between that. The game is terrain and miniature agnostic, so you can use whatever the hell you like. As you can see, there's a bunch of Stargrave plastics and some course-based terrain in there. So, shows off exactly what you do with it all. The idea of the game that is designed for you to play out one-off games or full campaigns, however you like doing it. It uses a D12 system, which they think is a nice happy medium between the classic D6 and the big swings of D20s and stuff. Oh, hello there. There's an Eisenkern in the background. Yeah.
Somebody's been shot in the face.
I think I got someone who's kicking around. I wonder what they're like compared to the new guard. Or Astra Militarum.
Well, they've revamped them.
They've revamped them, yeah.
So. Well, they got revamped too.
By Wargames Atlantic, of all people. So, but yeah, one of the nice things about this game is that it's, one of the things that I was very much drawn to when I was reading about this is the idea that they've tried to really build on the idea of making it a sort of challenging game whilst also making it easy to learn, if you know what I mean. So a lot of the stuff that's been built into the game is tried to sort of make it narrative and scenario focused, which is always nice to see. There's a really intelligent, as they've called it, sort of NPC system in the game. So rather than characters having a very prescribed way of dealing with things like I see you, I would shoot you, I don't see you, I move, and you can kind of game it. You actually roll dice to see what the AI does, and you sort of compare it to a table, which I think is really neat, which kind of means that solo and co-op gaming has a little bit more edge to it, where you're not entirely sure what a unit's going to do. You kind of know their capabilities, but you're sort of not quite sure, which I think is quite nice. They've also thrown in a whole bunch of stuff that kind of like twists and changes things as you're playing the game through. So there's loads of events that will pop up and all that kind of thing as well. And there's a really nice sort of focus on characters kind of doing what they can with their action points to sort of make big heroic moves and all that kind of thing, which is always good to see. The game is available to pre-order right now from their website. So if you're interested in going to check it out, you can do. We've managed to get our hands on a copy of the rulebook, so I'm going to be taking a little bit more of a deeper look at this in more detail very soon. But as a nice little thing for their sort of complete kit, I guess, the set isn't just the book. You get the book, and then you get the cards, and you get the dice, and you get the sort of markers for experience and initiative and that kind of thing. You also then get enough cheat sheets for like 4 players to play the game, because they said one of the things that they really don't like is when you get a book and it's got 1 cheat sheet in it. So they've done a nice job of trying to make it as gamer friendly as possible, which I think is really cool. There's obviously plenty of sci-fi games out there and plenty of sci-fi miniatures, but if you're looking for something that kind of steps in the middle of a bunch of the rest of them and tries to deliver something a little bit different, maybe go and check this out, especially for that kind of solo and co-op thing. I think the sort of AI they've built for the game is really fun. It'd be nice to see how that works in practice. So yeah, watch out for more on that one. But if you've not seen it before, really cool new sci-fi game out there. And it didn't go to Kickstarter. It just appeared. So, go and see what you think.
Nobody is more surprised than us in this day and age that something managed to avoid Kickstarter. God bless them and all who sail in them. Now, I mean, I've got Hydrophilia miniatures, which are very sci-fi / cyberpunk-esque, which are kind of crying out for a game. I mean, Hydrophilia is the game that I could play them with, but I like being able to chuck them into other things as well without them looking desperately different from everybody around them. So I'll have to have a wee nosy myself.
What is that? Is that the fear of drinking water? Hydrophilia?
No, it's the love. Philia's love. It's the love of water. Yeah. You're thinking of phobia.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking of, yeah.
Right. Returning then to the mid-19th century, because it seems like forever since we were last talking about all the types of wars that were going on in the 1860s.
Yeah.
There's been a whole host of stuff coming out of Warlord Games then.
Yeah. So obviously when Warlord Games did their Epic Battles series, they started off with Napoleon and doing all that kind of good stuff around Waterloo and that kind of thing. And they basically built up everything around that particular battle, I think it's safe to say, and they sort of did everything they could with it. They have seriously expanded the scope and what's available for Epic Battles with the American Civil War. And so a whole bunch of new sort of collected kits and sort of upgrade stuff has come out for that. So there's a couple of new kind of, I guess you'd say, starter sets for you to dive into when you're playing the American Civil War with the Epic Battles system and collection. So you've got the Guts and Glory set, which is the smaller collection, which comes with enough for both the Union and the Confederates and stuff for you to play out very small engagements on the tabletop. You get loads of miniatures, obviously, because it's a small scale, alongside a bit of terrain. Or you can level things up to the Gettysburg battle set, which is very cool, which comes with over 2,000 figures in it. 2,000, I say. And again, there's enough there for both the Confederates and the Union, but it kind of builds up on the terrain that you get in the set, alongside a whole host of different unit types and all that kind of things as well. Some of those unit types are also available separately, and you can get them inside this box too. Now, I cannot remember how to say this word, so if someone else could step in and do it for me, probably Jerry. So you get some cavalry, and you also get the
Suaves.
There we go. We also get the Suaves brigades. So
that's the wee dudes with the red pants.
Yes, big harem pants and fezzes or kepis, depending on how they're feeling.
Yeah. So if you want to make the named units from this time for both the Confederates and the Union, you get the chance to build up those, and you can either get them as part of these sets or as individual packs if you prefer, as you can see down below. So there's some new ones there if you did tinker around with, which is always nice to see. They did actually name who the different units were. I'm just going
to like Iron Brigade and things like that.
Yes. So it's the
because they're 10 mil as well. And there was an awful lot of cross-pollination because they had been one army originally before splitting up. It means it's not beyond the realms of possibility that these could all be ran as just Union or just Confederacy.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So, picking up the starter set, and even though it's 2-player, if you want to go big on one side or the other, you can do it. I know people like Leon T66 on YouTube had been carving down wide-brimmed hats into kepis and stuff on people to change around how units look, because at 10 mil, everything's so withdrawn, you can kind of get away with it very easily.
It's a great little selection of different things. And as I say, it's really nice to see them taking that extra step, I think, with the American Civil War and showing off a little bit more of the range and what they can build to it as in terms of expansion content and terrain and all that kind of things as well. Because obviously, with what they've done for the American Civil War is they've tried to take the war as a whole rather than what they did with Waterloo, which is kind of like we're just making the Waterloo stuff effectively with a few additional bits here and there, obviously. But they very much focused in on that battle for that, whereas this is a much broader collection.
Counters we're looking at, or pictures?
Yes,
they're modelled counters. Yeah, so the little tiny casualty markers for you to use in your games, with little marks on them and little dead fellows as well. So
because you can get that's a separate set. So even if you're not playing black powder in 10 mil, having casualty markers, because those tiny little casualty markers behind your units are still a nice way of doing it, even if you're playing 28 or
regardless of the scope.
Yeah. So I'm on board with that as well. So I really like my casualty markers and get back into them.
But
tragic thing that I am.
I do have a little concern. I like the fact that they're doing 10 mil and doing all these big battles and stuff like that, but the Gettysburg box feels like it's going to be a painter's nightmare because there's too much. I know it's 10 mil, but if you're sitting down to a project of doing that, I would probably paint maybe one regiment and then call it a year.
Yeah, but it's partly that's that, but also you can literally go, well, I'm going to paint this regiment.
Is Gettysburg. Yeah.
So, you break into regiments, so that's 5 or 6 strips, and then two strips per base, or 5 or 6 bases rather than 2 strips per base. So you're only painting like 12 at a time. Do them, move on. Or if you don't want to, if memory serves, I believe these are the same as Waterloo in that they're pre-colored plastics. So you could just put them blue Confederates and grey, blue Union and grey Confederate plastics just straight onto the bases, so you can just play it out. They're already pre-colored, and you just go ahead and.
I get what you mean though, John, because sometimes you'll get to a set and you'll buy like every model that ever exists for an army, and then you'll go. But
it's something I'm going to expand out. It's something the Warlord has done with some of their bigger boxes in the past, even the bold action ones, like the was it the Battle of Berlin box or something like that, where there was so much infantry and so many vehicles and then terrain. It's like it's cool, but you've bogged that you've bogged that player down in weeks of building.
He wants to do it. The person who buys this is going, I want to torture myself.
Yeah, I want to when you first buy it.
It's the great thing about mass battle games.
The Warlord doesn't care about that. Once they've sold it to you, I don't care if you paint it, as long as you bought it from me.
Same as any war game.
Show us the big set in its entirety again there. Because I am terribly tempted by this stuff. And I'm the world's
Well, we definitely know that Lloyd's going to pay one unit and then forget about it.
The world's slowest painter.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's basically Gettysburg in a box.
They come with the wee flags.
I have a sprue of them somewhere, and
I think they're sculpted on.
They're sculpted on, yeah.
Oh, those are actually sculpted flags.
But you have to draw the designs on. You have to paint the designs on.
Oh, you mean so they're not little cutouts that you use to stick on a?
No, I think they're like little plastic flags on the top of the.
I was going to go and reach over for the sprue, but I boxed them away because I had so much crap.
I don't know, but that's a step too far, painting flags.
I may be wrong. But
2,000 miniatures. That's all right. Painting flags. Oh no, I'm out, man. I am out.
None of that.
I'll paint all the trousers in the world, but I won't.
Show me a sprue.
See, 119 quid's not bad. Like for the amount of stuff.
It's a game in a box, isn't it?
It is a game in the box because I was in, I was pricing
up.
Why are the
commands not on there?
I was pricing up an army of. I was pricing up an army of cow elves, and it was like 220. It was like 225 quid, and I was like, maybe not.
Because there's a standard there.
And
there's paper.
It is paper.
Paper flags. And away you go.
I stand corrected.
The paper flag. Oh yeah, is that them?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Now we're talking.
Now you're going to buy it.
I thought they were going to need to be painted for a while there. I was panicking there. Imagine having to paint 4 or 5 flags. Oh my god!
And again, because they're pre-colored plastics, you've got your grey and your blue army. If you don't want to paint them, stick the flags on. Away you go. Bam.
It also uses the basic rules for black powder. So if you've already been playing black powder anyway, just dive in and stop playing this.
I think the black powder set is in there as well anyway. So it's not just the miniatures, the rules and the like.
It's the whole set.
Yeah. I ain't got a baldy how black powder plays.
It's very similar to Warmaster.
Yeah, it's a command and control.
I ain't got a baldy how that plays.
You issue orders and then you see if your units do it.
Yeah. So your commander goes, I would like you on the left flank to send infantry towards that hill, and then you go, okay, infantry move towards that hill, and then you roll and go, you successfully pass that order by like a factor of 2, so you make 2 moves.
Yeah, see, my worry about
you
this,
go make 3 moves, or you make 1 move, or you fluff it and go, we're not going anywhere, chum.
My worry when I look at the box set isn't necessarily about the painting, because you can torture yourself with years for that. You've got 6 years to paint and torture yourself. I'm still painting an army 5 years later.
Why 6? Why is the limit on 6? Is that the
end? Well, 66 years then. There we go. My main concern is how long will it take me to play that game to kill everybody on the field?
It's insanity close.
2,000 guys to get
2,000
of them to get dead though.
For black powder, you can bang out a game of that in a couple of hours, or if you want to play a massive game and take you're not even taking all day because you're using the stripped down rules. So the full Gettysburg game you could play over the course of a day, just a full day of gaming, because you could set up the first day of Gettysburg ran over multiple days where there were different actions at different areas.
See,
so you
can do like day.
You do like fishing, or you can just go, this week we'll just play, the cavalry charge, and
I've got an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, we'll do it in an hour and 20 minutes. Sure.
Okay.
Not
including setup.
To give you an idea of the classic black powder experience, as Peachy said in one of his new videos with his new chums over on a different channel, when he was playing Duncan, he, who's actual Duncan Rhodes from Games Workshop as well, he said, "I'll give my order to my troops to form into line, march up a hill, form back into into a firing line, lying column, back to the top or whatever." He got 2 of those orders off. They walked down the road and then got immediately charged by all of Duncan's cavalry and killed. That is how you play black powder. There we go.
I honestly find it was written as a game that should be GM'd, and I still think that is the best way to play it. It's not a points based. You bring 2,000 points, I bring 2,000 points. It's a narrative that you are playing this particular action, and then therefore what your order of battle is, and you know what your objectives are, and your opponent knows what their objectives are, and then you just see if you can do better or not as badly as the historic commander did. Could you actually take Gettysburg, or will you just run into the massive kicking that the Confederates got when they attempted it? Yeah, excellent. Like it a lot. Where next?
So next we're going to be getting all pulpy and weird for Halloween with pulp figures, because we have a new set of releases that are coming out for you to use in all sorts of different games, be they investigations, something Lovecraftian, or everything in between. We have the Arcane Academics. So this is your set of venerable teachers and lecturers that in no way would get it embroiled in all sorts of weird shenanigans, but somehow have found a book in the library that will make them go on some strange quest. I bet it was the cat's fault, but there we go.
Pushing things off tables, like a cat serial killer.
So this is the another wonderful little collection of Bob merch miniatures that have been brought to the tabletop for you to use. Now, what did you work out about this group, Jerry? That I was like mind blown.
Well, I didn't, but I'm running with it because one of our community members went. Did the student investigators? Is that the Scooby Gang, or am I looking at this too hard? And I looked at it and went, Fred, Velma, Daphne, Shaggy, which makes this guy in the hairy coat Scooby. That's 100% who it is.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter what people say to me. That is how I choose to view them from now on. So the student investigators, the people desperately trying to get credit from their academic professor and therefore find themselves in the middle of Peru, trying not to be killed up by the natives as they steal their local treasures.
Or running around campus, smashing weird flying Lovecraftian beasts down into the ground, into mush, with a tennis racket is the way that I think of it.
And while Daphne's doing that, Shaggy escapes.
Exactly, yeah.
Never fight those monsters. That's madness.
We also got the Mediums and Mystics set as well. So this comes with a bunch of strange people that you no doubt visit halfway through the film to give you an exposition dump on exactly how to defeat the enemy.
I've seen him and his eyebrows before.
I love that guy. I like to think of him. There's probably some movie reference to who he is.
I want to say it's an Orson Welles character.
It does look a lot like, I like to think of him as the stage magician who's really bad at magic, but in actual fact is a proper wizard. And he's just trying to hide it. And then I also love the mystic in the wheelchair. I think that's amazing. Yeah. With the little seeing orb as well. Very nice indeed.
All about the crystal balls.
We also got a bunch of different terrain sets. Now, a lot of people will be very familiar with who this guy is.
The most evil man in Europe.
Yes. This was in a antediluvian set. I think it was last year, maybe as well. This same guy. So, I can't remember his name now.
It's Aleister Crowley, the leader of the Golden Dawn.
Yes. So you've got the Altar of Evil there. There's also the Shrine of the Grail, which is a lovely little train set where you must choose wisely in order to pass.
It's all right. There's only one choice to make there. I'll take the Grail, please.
Yeah. Well, I'll take the one on the plinth.
Clearly, that Grail's not working very well. He's not looking for help.
Maybe he's one of the brothers who left, and this is your clue to, under a cathedral in France.
There's also the Devilish Accoutrement set, and I love the word accoutrement. And the thing that I really like about this set is that you could take any one of these little pieces and you could put this into your gaming terrain, and suddenly it turns a normal house into a den of evil.
Really? Just because of that goat head on us.
What's an awfully strange ornament you have, Grandma?
It's just a really cool coat hanger.
Well, I was about to say, is that, it might not be a coat hanger, that might be a hat stand, and then that's somebody's goat mask on the hat stand, because you can see the hood below it. That's what Crowley wears whenever he goes in later on, to give a high five to this little monument here. Or it could be a palmistry thing, I suppose. You have that on the table with your mystic.
Yeah, I always love the skulls and all that kind of thing. I heard a good thing on a D&D Reddit this week, which was a guy who had very specific funeral requests. He said that he didn't want to be buried and he didn't want to be cremated. What he wanted is he wanted to be sent off to one of those labs where they turn you into diamonds. And he wanted to have his head cut off and his skull entirely cleaned, and then he wanted the rest of his body rendered down into diamonds and put in to the eye sockets so that he could rest on a mantelpiece and watch his family for all eternity. So there we go. That is some next level stuff.
This reminds me of the time my dad said to my sister that he wanted to be buried at sea, and her response was, "You'll be dead. It doesn't matter what you want. You'll go in the ground like everybody else." And I feel like his family is going to say the same thing. Oh, is that what you want? Oh, yeah, 100%. Right. Great, please.
I'm happy enough to go in a bin bag, to be honest.
Well, there we go. We also got a couple of different bonus miniatures that have been added to the Pulp figures range. So you've got Rondo, the Campus Creeper, who I think is probably like the red herring in your story. Everyone thinks he's the evil guy, but actually he's just a weird creep. And he actually knows more than he's letting on.
Poor,
and then you have
weird creep.
Yeah. And then you have Pyewacket the cat, who I definitely believe is a talking cat, and is who the investigators find when they're walking around in the library. And Pyewacket will stride in and be like, "Oh, so you're trying to deal with the strange Lovecraftian beast from the beyond." Wow. And there we go.
Or it works like Deep Throat. They're always being told to meet in like a dark alley or the back of a library where there's no lights on it, and all they hear is the voice. And it's some time before it turns out, they try and chase him down a corridor to find out who he is. Or we'll meet him tonight, and then you tail him, and we'll find out who he is and who's giving us this instructions. It's like, I lost him all. It was in the alley. It was a cat. It's like 3 weeks later, they go, it was the cat.
Exactly. Yeah.
Then the Mygo put your brain in a jar, and it's all over for you. That's how it works. I really like those figures. They're excellent.
They're really nice. Yeah.
I really want more Pulp games to play. So exactly. TV probably is a good way to go.
Yeah.
They need a Zuckerberg. Get a Zuckerberg miniature.
That's any robot, right?
Yeah. Sitting there programming Facebook.
We've already seen Zuckerberg without his flesh suit on earlier. It was all wires and stuff. It was good. Right.
Like Tesla.
Yeah, it's a frightening thought. Returning then to the grimdark of the far future with a vow.
Oh, there's more.
Oh, there is.
You guys are keen this week.
Very much so.
What have you opened? We're looking at fantasy stuff now. I don't know. What?
Are we?
Yes.
I thought we were looking at the Absolver Marines.
Oh, no. Oh. We're looking at some Conquest stuff. That's what we're looking at.
Oh, right. Okay.
But yes, so there's some new releases that have come out. I know you really like 40k, Jerry, but
I can't get enough of it. So this is a new set of pre-orders for the 100 Kingdoms and Conquest from the folks at Paramount Wargames. So we got a whole bunch of new plastic kits for you to dive into and have fun with. The leading the way was the Imperial Ranger Corps, as you can see there. Another set of just awesome 35mm models for both Last Argument of Kings and I think pretty darn good for First Blood if you're planning to do a little bit of skirmishing, especially with the way that they're all posed and the stances that are in. I think they look fantastic, and they're a really nice little set of miniatures for you to use in your games. They were expert woodsmen back in the day that have become sort of a core part of every 100 Kingdoms army now since then, and they have good knowledge of the battlefield and will be very nice as scouts for you to use in your games. Drafted in as scouts and a line of upload armor.
Exactly. Yeah.
Before your important people have to take the field.
We also have the Order of the Crimson Tower Knights, which I think are some amazing looking characters. Even though these look evil as all hell, they're actually some of the nicest knights around.
Sure.
Nicest knights around. So they will only ride into battle with those that have given them a legal reason for war. That is their sort of mandate. And they forbid anyone that they fight alongside from looting and pillaging the battlefield. So as they say in the fluff, the nobles that will be looking to raise armies within the 100 Kingdoms will have to weigh up the fact that they want the spoils of war or the expertise of
realistically, these are the most evil knights ever.
Well,
if they're being told what to do by lawyers, they probably are.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Shocking altogether.
From personal experience of lawyers, yes. We also have the Priory Commander, who is the leader for the Crimson Tower Knights. So each of the different knightly orders within the 100 Kingdoms kind of have their own command structure, and the Priory Commander is the leader of the Crimson Tower Knights. Sort of represents them on the councils and all that kind of stuff. Again, an awesome looking little, well, not little, it's pretty big. It's 35 mil plastic kit with alternative head options and weapons and all that kind of stuff. I prefer the sword. I think it just swords are awesome, really. But a really nice little set for you to use for leading the way with your Crimson Tower Knights. Very cool. Yeah.
They are excellent stuff.
Yeah, and last of all, we have the Errand of the Order of the Shield. That's a long title. So these are the great protectors and monster hunters and valiant heroes of the 100 Kingdoms. But when the last emperor died and was replaced by magistrates, Imperial magistrates. They decided that the errant of the Order of the Shield had too much power, and much like the Knights Templar in real life, got hunted down and burned and killed and all sorts of different things. So occasionally you'll see an errant of the Order of the Shield riding around on the battlefield or fighting on foot. And they are much loved by the populace, but hated by everyone else in command. But an amazing looking little set. I really love the sculpting on the model. I think the sort of grim look of the character is very cool. And I've just noticed that hammer is a pair of screaming faces wearing blindfolds, which is amazing. So, yeah.
Justice is blind.
Parabellum always nails their characters.
Oh, yes. Very much
Absolutely nails their characters.
Amazing stuff there for the 100 Kingdoms. And diving into a bit of Conquest. Yeah. Perfect for First Blood. There we go.
Yeah, always good, clean family fun with them, I feel.
And you can pre-order those from store.ontabletop.com. But ding.
Swing!
There was a bit of a chat myself and Constantinos had about the Order of the Shield, amongst others, in a Spotlight a little while ago. And there'll be a Spotlight article about it on Parabellum's website. So, yeah, sort of an order that everybody kind of wants to wipe out, but they're probably the last true knightly order that still maintains their values and haven't just sold out like others we might mention. Crimson Gits. Just saying. Right.
Crimson Git.
Enough of the news. We should be back in just a moment to round out the show. All right, we are back and we're going to be taking a look at some digital 3D printing things that Benjamino has found. And this is from Melton Mowbray, the people who make the pork pies.
Yes, so the pork pie miniature company. No. So Medbury Miniatures.
That'd be awesome if you bought a pork pie and you ate it and you got a miniature inside.
Like a Kinder Surprise egg.
A very British Kinder egg. Yeah.
Pork.
Maybe not a lead miniature, right? But you know, some sort of miniature.
So Medbury Miniatures caught my eye for one reason, really, and that is that they make dwarves. But that's not the main reason why I wanted to show this off, because whilst you might look at this site and immediately go, well, isn't it all just a bunch of Middle-earth themed miniatures?
Yes.
And in many cases, it is. There's also a lot of very, very cool medieval English stuff in there as well. So there are Scotsmen and all sorts of different badass stuff that you could use for Baron's War and everything in between as well. But
so Middle Earth English then. So Minglish.
Yes. Minglish. Minglish. Yeah.
Portmanteaus just keep on coming.
So yes, there's Middle Earth in both senses of the word. There's the real history and the made-up history by Tolkien, I suppose. Although not really Tolkien, because these are not Middle Earth miniatures at all.
No, these are Minglish.
Yeah. Minglish miniatures, yeah. So they've done a whole host of different collections so far. They've done your elves, they've done dwarves, they've done a whole host of different things. What's quite nice about a lot of the stuff here is that it kind of fills in the gaps that were left by Games Workshop during that kind of period where they weren't really creating anything. And for those people that want to have updated plastic, well, I guess in this case, resin models to kind of work as your sort of core troops in the game, that's kind of where they're trying to sort of build up a nice collection here. So you've got stuff that could be used to represent the likes of Rivendell or Lothlorien, depending on how you wanted to go about it. And I think all of the miniatures are very, very nice. I've seen some printed versions of a lot of the dwarves of the Sapphire Hills, which is in no way the Blue Mountains. Yeah. And they've come out really, really well. But I know a lot of people who've picked these up and used them as alternatives for Middle-earth. I know a lot of people who've used them for Oathmark and everything as well in between. But yeah, really nice stuff.
Gutted there's not an elven bard with a lambeg there, since you've got one with the flute.
What I really like, if you click on that Arna-Duin captain that's sort of down the way there.
This one.
That gives you a good idea. So one of the other things they've done is they've tried to create really cool characters to fit in like the likes of Arnor and stuff. So if you are someone who wants to play that kind of Lost Realms area of stuff in Middle-earth, up in Eriador, I know I'm just saying a bunch of words that some people are going, what? And this is definitely a collection you want to go and check out and play around with. Use these along the likes of Malbeth the Seer and those really cool characters. And
fit in very well with the old Perisculpt Empire trips as well.
Very much so. Very, very good for that. Yeah, but just it gives you a little bit of a clue of the different kinds of stuff they've been working on. If you scroll down as well on that main page, you'll see there's like William Wallace, there's kings, there's a whole host of different clansmen and all different things you can use. You've got your French and English knights that they've built for this game. For this range as well. They can be used in the Baron Tour and all that kind of good stuff. All looking very nice indeed. As I say, very nice sculpts, full of motion, lots of individuality and uniqueness, and all that kind of stuff, which is always good to see. And a nice opportunity for someone who wants to do some 3D printing, mainly because you see a lot of 3D printing for
fantasy and sci-fi.
Yeah, fantasy and sci-fi, but you don't necessarily see the same thing for historical. And so it's nice to see that. Well, I suppose you see it for World War II. To varying degrees, but you don't often see it for the medieval period. No. And I think this sort of fills in a nice gap. The other thing that's really nice about this stuff is that I think it works quite well proportion-wise, from looking at it, with a lot of the Fireforge stuff, especially in the kind of slightly more exaggerated elements of the models and things. So I think if you're looking to pick up things from Fireforge, these would work quite nicely alongside those. It'd be cool. But,
they are excellent. I really like them. I know you really want me to open a dwarf. I might have a look at a dwarf in a while. Don't worry. We'll take a look at some wooden stakes, though. To
be fair, I was just as impressed with the medieval stuff as I was with the dwarves. So it's not like I'm a one-trick pony, although I probably am.
If I knew the name of the pony from Lord of the Rings, I would name
Sam? It now. There we go. I'm one-trick Sam. There we go. But yeah, so you got your awesome archers and everything you could use in your games. I love that it comes with the little palisades and all that kind of stuff as well. The little, not palisades, wooden stakes.
Sticks.
Palisades are an actual wall. So, yeah.
See, now we're looking at ranges that might actually tempt me to get a 3D printer.
Well, there we go. Like, how cool is that? That there is some stuff out there that would make people go, they wouldn't necessarily go down the route of printing off World War II stuff or something, but, with medievals. You've got a really good reason to dive in. So,
do they come pre-supported?
I don't know. If we look at the info tab, it will say. But
because I'd be a lot more interested if they were definitely coming pre-supported, because that just makes things so much easier.
It did say something about supports on that info thing, which we'll look at in a second when Jerry has showed off these lovely knights.
Kniggets.
I always love. There's something cool about knights in that kind of like the mix of plate armor with the chainmail and the tabards and the and everything else. It just looks so cool.
It also looks like they've had to spend a long time waiting to get dressed.
Yes,
there's a lot of effort going into all that.
They come with unsupported STLs, supported STLs, and a light cheese slicer scene, whatever that means. So, yeah.
Lychee, I'm not a fan of the fruit.
But if their slicer does the job, then yeah.
Does he look like Patrick McGowan?
You tell me, Jerry.
Not really. Kind of everything.
Yeah. But yeah. I really like that they've built up this really nice little collection of medieval stuff for people. A lot of the sort of medieval ranges that are out there tend to be in metal, I would say.
God's own material.
Yeah. But if you're looking to do a lot of stuff at home, then this is definitely one to have a look at.
Yep.
So,
Go on then. What dwarf do you want to look at?
There's a guy with bagpipes there. Down in the very bottom right corner.
Yeah, you got your Scottish pikemen, commanders, and Saxons. Oh, God, the Saxons are great.
Look how great he is. Look at him with his little dragon banner.
It makes a sound when the wind goes through it.
Still not been able to work out how that works.
Yeah.
I watched some people fail at trying to make it happen, which is a bit of a shame. Look at him, bagpiping
How cool is
away.
those guys? I love the chap with his sword raised up and the big beard. Oh, amazing.
See, it could be the Bruce's brother. Send him off to Ireland to get killed.
Look at them all properly ranked up as well.
Can't stand bagpipe music, but I kind of like it.
I like it.
Square bases like nature intended.
Yeah. You can't have a pike unit without being ranked up, I guess.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, a very Agincourt.
They do such a really nice section of stuff because like for the medieval period, they do lots of the different sort of smaller factions within that. And then for sort of Middle-earthy type stuff, they do dwarves, they do elves, they do sort of halfling type creatures. Halfling type fellows.
Creatures,
as well.
You're right. Creatures.
You've got sort of like Khan and Rune in there as well. You've got your orcs and your goblins and everything in between too, which is always nice.
Prices look pretty good as well.
Rising Sun.
Yeah. Especially for like a fair whack of miniatures as well.
Yep.
So,
little axemen with metally heads.
Those are cool.
Oh, so amazing. So cool. I want them, but I don't have a 3D printer.
They're not that expensive anymore, Ben.
The moose mount.
Yeah, that's true. So if you've got a Thranduil that you want mounted on a moose, you can now have one. So yeah,
that's something that they can do.
And look at those big old shoes that he's wearing. That's the basing. We imagine that was this. Yeah. So yeah, I also wanted to bring up their tribe because their latest stuff is very cool for those people who are interested in kind of Dark Age. So you've got Beowulf, which is very cool, stepping in as a new character, looking badass alongside some of his Huskars. Oh, very cool.
Everybody's dead.
And then you've also got a few more 13th century warriors as well.
Yeah.
Alas, there is not. But,
no bigger picture. Yeah. Must pay to unlock bigger pictures.
But look,
Billman, though.
Billman and Beowulf.
Billman's it's a good time because never mind the bill hooks is about to get a proper actual release as well from Dave. That's quite good.
Yeah,
if you're after some of those, and then Hobbit-y types,
little
tiny hobbits, annoying everybody by being little tiny hobbits.
So if you're looking to do the Scouring of the Shire, or if you're looking to play out the last days of the Kingdom of Arnor, where the halflings, the hobbits were sent north,
sure,
and all died. Then spoilers.
Did we really look through all of that and only bring up one set of dwarves?
Yeah.
Well, I did, yes.
Yeah. We have limited time.
We didn't even bring up the dwarven cataphracts.
Did you want to see the dwarven cataphracts?
Yeah, I did.
I even think they're goat-based cataphracts as well.
So.
I will bring up the dwarven cataphracts just for you, lad. Once I find where they live. What are they? They're giant wolves.
That $5 you're paying me, Ben, just post it to
me. Right, let's see if we can come across a dwarf mounted on a ghost and heavily armoured somewhere in the Melton Mowbray pies. So here we are, dwarvy bits.
I thought they were near the top.
They're right up at the top.
Are they right at the top? Oh, I can only see people on chariots up the top. I wasn't even paying attention.
Here come. Right up at the top. Right up there. Down.
You keep that down, but if I go down,
right on the
I'll
left.
go
there,
past them.
Click them. You know you want
this
to.
One. It's on my cursor. That one.
Yeah.
The urge to close that was so massive. You have no idea.
Look at those.
Oh, crap. These are actually really nice.
Maybe this truly is the reason for you to have a 3D printer.
They've got horns looking not dissimilar to Mr. Whippy ice cream. Or, you know, that Indian fellow with the world's longest toenails.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's a...
That'd be a good way to paint them. All yellow and...
Yeah, very cool stuff.
It's a little ship banner. Hello, little ship banner.
The twirly horns is the only thing I actually don't like. I think they're too twirly for me.
Get snitted.
Once you've impaled your opponent, how are you going to get the twirly horns back out again? It's like a barb. To just be trapped.
Goat has to like turn over on a lefty loosey, righty tighty.
That's it. Oh, just corkscrewing. Just hit the people and then just go when you pull them back out with a big lump of flesh right in there. So that's the Medbury Miniatures 3D printing then.
Mm-hmm. Go and check it out.
And Melton Mowbray if you're after a pie. Similar but different. Right.
With a miniature in it.
Yeah, with a miniature in it. No guarantee your home may be at risk if you do not keep up repayments.
Did you win one of our prizes? Find out on our prize claim center over at OnTableTop.com. Here we list all our previous prizes and those who have won. If you see your username, fill out the form to claim your prize. All prizes must be claimed within 30 days.
finishing off this week, we're going to take a look at a relatively timely Kickstarter, considering the month and the season, which is The Heart of Darkness, Ben.
Yes. So this is a survival horror board game that I believe Free talked about actually a couple of months ago that is now available on Kickstarter from the Moongrel, not the Mongrel, the Moongrel. And this is a survival co-op board game for you to dive into and play with your friends. You can either play it by yourself or you can play with up to 4 people if you like. The idea of the game is that you have been stranded on an island in the middle of nowhere as one of a set of unique protagonists, each with their own skills and abilities. And you are trying to race around the island, picking up possessions, artifacts, and crafting all sorts of different things, trying to stop the strange creatures from the beyond that are being summoned around the board. As the game progresses, creatures will be brought onto the tabletop and will spawn at different locations, and they will make their way by the shortest path possible towards the heart of darkness that lies in the middle of the game board. If they get there, they will start to make everything on the island just that little bit worse as you play through the game, and events will become more deadly, and the effects of things that happen during the game will also become more perilous. To stop these creatures, you will have to get into their way. You will have to fight them in hand-to-hand combat with whatever you can find. You will have to lay traps for them by finding all sorts of different things. You will have to be sick by watching the video. And you will also be trying to use your sanity in order to prevail against the strange creatures that live out there. The game has a bunch of sort of replay value built into it because of the fact that you can play as different characters and they'll all come with different ideas. Every single time that a new turn or a new game round comes around, creatures will spawn at various different locations, and so you'll have to deal with the way that they approach the Heart of Darkness. The event card deck will change lots of different things as well, meaning that you might come up against harder enemies or softer enemies or enemies that are quicker and all sorts of different things in between. The game art also looks lovely as well, which is always a big plus. There is also a lovely twist in the game as well. So the game actually comes with a rule about communication. Now, you can talk about whatever you like. You can talk about the football. You can talk about the pub. You can talk about food. But you can't talk about the tactics you're using in the game unless you spend communication tokens. So there's a real sense of being lost on the island and separated from your friends as you're trying to work together. However, if you're in the same spot, you can talk as much as you like with your friend and try and talk about all the different things you want to try and do tactically in order to stop it. Oh, God. But I really love that little addition of that rule into the game because I think it makes things a little bit more tense and a little bit scarier, which is what you want from a game like this, I think.
Yeah. It's interesting because you often see, not in board games so much, but in RPGs, you always have that thing between character knowledge and player knowledge, where just because you're sitting around the table and you know what your friends have been told, your character shouldn't know that. And I like the idea of actually bringing that into the game where you're not in the same place. Therefore, why should your character actually know what he's planning to do in advance unless you've managed to communicate it in some way?
Yeah, like do you risk that communication token now to try and get across something that you think might be quite plain to everybody else at the table? Or do you sort of save it for a later date and that kind of thing as well? It's very cool. The thing that I really liked about it is that it's got all those survival horror elements built into the game itself and the way that the scenarios play out. But it's also got almost like a tower defense element to it because you will always know, well, you won't know where the creatures will spawn, but you know that they're going to take the quickest path to the Heart of Darkness on the board. So you can plan ahead and plot and lay your traps and that kind of thing. So I love that little strategic element that's been built on top of the survival experience, which is really nice. And if you can last the whole time and escape off the island, then well done you. So yeah, very nice. Comes with a bunch of additional bits and pieces. So you can get a neoprene mat, and they've got lots of things unlocking sort of upgrades to the game components and all that kind of thing as well, which is always nice. And new protagonists and all sorts of different things too. They did do a game before this, which is called like the Dungeons of Dragmar or something. There it is. So if you want to pick up that game, you can get that too. But this has kind of been a refined product, they said. So a lot of the lessons they learned with the last game, they have sort of brought into the Heart of Darkness in order to make it a much more smooth experience. And I don't think mechanically the game is that hard to get your head around.
Yeah.
Basically, everything I've told you now is pretty much how you play the game, really. So.
It's a fascinating little jaunt into, as everybody knows, I love my 1920s Cthulhu. I will say the idea of setting traps by using dark mystical rites, never do that. Don't do that. Just because you have a spell book and can learn a spell doesn't mean you should use that spell book or that spell.
Very true.
Sanity is limited. It's easier to feed your companions to whatever it is and then run away. Just always feed your companions to whatever the creeping unknown is, but then run away. And if needs be, you can always grab the opiates and deal with it that way.
I like the tokens to communicate. I can just think of Justin paying for a token to use his walkie-talkie to talk to me, and I'll be at the other side of the table going, "Shh, bad connection. Shh, can't hear anything." Just totally frustrated. I've just spent my token. Shh, can't hear nothing.
It's probably some sort of interference from Aurora Borealis. We're nowhere near the Northern Hemisphere. Sorry. It's not helping. But yeah, like I say, the artwork is absolutely stunning as well.
It really is. Yeah.
I like that very harsh shading and highlighting. So it should be a fascinating little game. 26 days left on that, already funded. So definitely one to take a look at. There's a few how to plays there as well from Board Game Geek and Tabletopia, I think, is kicking around at the bottom for people to explore.
You can download the rule book and all that kind of good stuff as well. So go and have fun with it. Yeah.
Fascinating. Just in time for Halloween. Everybody's favourite time of the year. From Moongrel. I quite like the Moongrel thing as well, to be fair.
There's even a little story about the Moongrel in their bio, which is always nice.
Oh, sweet to the beach. We'll leave that as a little Easter eggy nugget for people to find themselves. But that wraps it up for another weekend. My God, that was a big one. I feel spent.
Good luck, Justin.
Thank God that's over, because I got a load of 3D printing to go look at now. Damn.
Right, we shall return for our cultists on Sunday morning. You can join us over on tabletop.com for some relaxing hobby time where you can digest everything that we've been up to over the past 7 days. If not, we shall return next Friday for more of the same. Until then, have a great week of gaming. Bye-bye.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.